Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fifth episode of Into the Story. Today we have a very special guest, SirSalty.
Hello.
What's up, man? How's it going?
Glad to be here. It's going good, going good.
We are going to be missing some friendly faces for this episode. Unfortunately, Kleck and 40 were not able to join us, but should be good to go. So, you're a pretty popular Storybook Brawl streamer. You know,
Apparently it just kind of happened over the last couple of weeks, but yeah.
He's kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. Just tournament winner, all that. Which you can find the post interview with Deathblow, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and link that in the description. Giving a shout out to Deathblow.
Definitely friend of the podcast. He's always commenting and stuff. Really like that guy.
Yep. Yeah, he's a great guy. We do have some topics on board. We got some making a little bit of a guide, apparently for Gwen.
Yeah, to start off with.
You want to kind of elaborate on what you're looking for?
So yeah, I like right now. There's not much there's not much resources for new and intermediate players. The only way to really learn is just by watching streamers play, watching the highlights they upload to YouTube and stuff. So there's definitely been a demand for guides, and like people are always asking my chat as well. So yeah, the plan is just to start writing some guides. Maybe we'll do video guides at some point in the future too. But for now, we'll start off by writing guides, hopefully aimed for it will be useful information for all ranges. Like I'm trying to include like some advanced or like tips and stuff for like the more experienced players, but also then keep it like friendly for like newer players as well. And yeah, so that's like probably going to be published on Channel Fireball sometime over the next week, and hopefully I'll like get into the rhythm of doing a couple guides. And there'll be hero guides, there'll be like comp guides, there will be like a whole mixture of different types. So yeah.
Oh wow, that's pretty impressive. Channel Fireball is a pretty popular Magic the Gathering and card game resource. I used to go on CFB all the time looking for whatever the next new brew is going to be whenever the next set released. Did you play Magic at all?
I played a little bit, yeah. I played it like a little bit casually. I really liked the like limited format and like drafting and stuff. And then there was like a university tournament I played in, and that was a lot of fun. So that pushed me outside my comfort zone a little bit. So yeah, but besides, I haven't played too much compared to other games. But yeah.
So I'm guessing you were a Battlegrounds background prior to coming in this, or where was your auto chess derived from?
Yeah, so I guess I can just go into detail quickly of like my sort of competitive history and like esports background and stuff for people curious. So I started as a Hearthstone player, like pretty young when the game first came out, was like hitting high legend, but I was just playing it for fun, just a competitive player in general, wasn't even like considering tournaments or anything like that. And then I won my first tournament in 2018. It's the first tournament I ever played in. I kind of qualified for it by accident. I wasn't even intending to. It was just like a ladder finishing qualification, and I just happened to like be in the range to qualify. So yeah, played in that, won that. And then from there, I just started competing. And this was so I just started competing over the next year in like constructed tournaments, did pretty well. Then Battlegrounds came out, got rank 1 in that. Played in a few tournaments. Honestly, the Battlegrounds tournaments went a bit disastrously. But that's okay. I was rank 1 in that game for so long and the best player for so long, but I've already made more money from Storybook Brawl tournaments than I had from Battlegrounds tournaments. But yeah.
It was a good learning experience. You gained a lot of knowledge from those defeats, right?
Yeah, it prepared me for these Storybook Brawl tournaments. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and yeah, now I'm here.
So those games are like specifically different, and Storybook pretty much has its own, I guess, learning curve to itself between treasure, heroes,
for sure,
being able to commit to, and like having that knowledge gap of like knowing like how much you should invest in utilizing a hero power versus like, or am I just given the strongest board possible and the strongest fairy godmother comp that you've ever seen on 3 or 4, and just like you're playing a Vela, it's like how far do I want to invest in this kind of thing? So there's different design philosophies that are essentially applied to both games. What do you like about Storybook, comparatively, but not even comparatively, what do you just like overall?
Yeah, so It's interesting because at first it looks very similar to Battlegrounds. A lot of people are just like, oh, it's basically Battlegrounds, but it's just like looks different, is more scuffed kind of thing. But when you play it, it actually feels so different to play. And I think the main reason definitely is the design around treasures and tripling is very different. I also think the design philosophy of the devs approaching the game is slightly different as well. I know the Storybook Brawl devs have a very like high priority on like whenever a player does something, they want like the interaction to like feel as good as possible to the player. They want it to be like a very feels good to the player game. Yeah, and also like have like lots of exciting moments. Obviously, the Hearts and Battlegrounds team values that very highly as well. But I think there is probably like some subtle differences there, and I think we'll see that like going forward as well with like patches and stuff. The other thing I really like about Storybook Brawl though, compared to all the other auto battles really, because I've played a lot of TFT and also auto Dota chess as like top 200 as well.
Oh,
yeah. Just dropping that in there, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. I was rook on my way to queen, so like I feel you.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to summarize for the listener, so Salty was better than Bahamut at the game.
Yeah.
That's just because people get confused sometimes. That's fine, you know?
Yeah. Rook is better than queen. Queen is top 500, and rook was like on the cusp of hitting top 500.
Yeah, actually, I don't know what rank I was in the Dota auto chess though, but it was when they moved it onto the mobile platform. Then I was like top 50.
Oh well,
But when it was actually in Dota itself, I don't remember what rank. I was pretty high, but I don't remember. Yeah.
Droto chess was interesting, but I want to save that topic for a rainy day.
Yeah, going off tangent here.
Yeah, because I can go into that entire thing for hours. But yeah, so you played TFT as well, so that's cool because I did as well. I was mid masters on the cusp of GM. I didn't really get super high, I guess, but we were close. We were close. Oh, it looks like we have a new adventurer has joined the fray.
Hello.
Hello, Kleck.
Sorry.
Hello.
Good. We were just talking about some of the design philosophy stuff. Like what you were describing, Salty, is this idea that like obviously Hearthstone values players feeling good, but like that's like the base philosophy at the bottom of Battle or at Storybook Brawl, right? Yeah, whereas like with other games, it might be like, yeah, we value that. And so we've talked about it before on the podcast how that can make the game feel good, but for somebody like myself who likes to understand the game at like a core level, it can make the individual interactions seem a bit strange, right? Because it kind of defines, well, this interaction could happen one way to make it feel better, or in another case, it could happen a different way to feel better, you know, like Ashwood Elm, whatever else.
Going into detail on that is, I think that's another big thing to distinguish between Hearthstone and Storybook Brawl, which I think will lend itself to Storybook Brawl in the long term in terms of like current and returning players, like sustaining the player base, is that Battlegrounds, they sort of limit themselves, like only a little bit, but they do limit themselves because they don't want things to become, they value like simplicity and like easy to view and understand over more like complex mechanics. Whereas Storybook Brawl, I think because as Magic players, a lot of the audience are just so used to like how complex different interactions and mechanics are. So coming from like Hearthstone to Storybook Brawl versus coming from Magic and Storybook Brawl, it's like such like it feels more alien to the Hearthstone players for sure, just because we're really not used to like having mechanics we have to work out how they actually work, because in Hearthstone they're kind of just, they make it very obvious to you. So I think there's frustrations around that for some players, especially when you're new, but I think it sort of unlocks sort of like more complexity, which especially for like keeping players around long term, it will generally just make the game interesting and allow like for like more space in the game design.
And that's a 40, one of the other members of this podcast has talked about before, that's kind of changed my perspective on things as like maybe more of a casual player. He really enjoys like exploring, like he like sees interaction, he's like, oh, I want to understand this complex thing that's going on, whereas like my general reaction is like tell me what I want to understand this. And he's like, well, eventually I'll understand it. But for now, it's just cool. Right. And so that's like I think that's what you're kind of saying, is that like, there's also this element of like them kind of planting things in the game, like tier 7 treasures or the Easter egg or the Ashwood Elm interactions, like those kind of things where it's like, the act of the player trying to understand those interactions actually draws them in deeper into the game, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that I use this example. I think I've used this as an example before, but with Lordy, right? And you have Echo Wood, and say you have Ring of Meteors that goes off first. Like, I thought that my Echo Wood was going to die before the Lordy got the stats, and then
that actually was a thing. They fixed that a couple patches ago. That used to be an interaction that happened, whereas the Echo would die unless you buffed it. But now it doesn't interact like that, where it would die from Ring of Meteors. The Lordy interaction happens first now.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, which I was really hesitant to ever do again, and then all of a sudden I forgot. It probably was Kleck, to be honest, because Lordy never is on vacation for him. Like, literally watched him do it, and I'm like, that shouldn't work the way that I think it does, and then it did, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I mean, that's like a nuanced interaction that you wouldn't have known happens that way without actually playing the game, right? Like, you can't, like, that's not something that you would essentially see.
Yeah. So and like another one, for example, on my very first day of playing the game, I was like, I had Cinderella with one tick of the quest, and I had the end in the shop offered for me. It was literally, I was like maybe 1 or 2 hours into playing the game, like brand new, had never even watched it before, because I played without watching any streams of it. And I was like, I have no idea if this works. Let's try it out. It probably won't work. I was leaning towards it won't work, but I did it anyways. And lo and behold, I still got the treasure, and so it was great. But yeah,
that devour reaction or interaction didn't actually work that way initially.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I looked out on them changing it before I started playing.
Yeah.
And then they switched it. So it used to be the end and True Love's Kiss didn't work. And then they switched that. But the one where you devour it for 2 coins, whatever it looks like, that one still didn't work. And so I did that one time, and my Cinder just like disappeared. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But now all of those interactions work. So just for anybody out there. So if you use any of those 3 spells, the end, True Love's Kiss, or whatever that coin one's called on Cinder, with 1 quest proc left, you will still get the quest, and you'll get the effect from the spell. So it's like a little trick to try there at home.
Yeah, definitely some really complex interactions, at least in this game, that a lot of people, I guess, don't really recognize. I had one that was really interesting, and I don't know how it works, but maybe you know, Salty. And so my opponent had a Shadow Assassin. It was like 175, 175. I casted Fog on it, or whatever, the reduced range attack. Went to 0 attack.
Gosh. Was it in Singing Sword?
That's what it was. Yeah, it was Singing Sword.
Yeah, so it's really weird. I'm not sure if they intended it to work how it works, but what happens is that it halves the attack. So like let's like simplify the numbers, right? Let's say you have a 100 attack Shadow Assassin. You put it in the Singing Sword, it goes to 200 attack. What the fuck does it? When it halves the attack, it minuses 100 attack from it. But then I guess the way it works is that the minus 100 attack is just like minusing from the base attack without the Singing Sword. So then it goes to 0 attack times 2, which is just 0 attack.
That seems like it's definitely not intended.
Yeah, so I don't think that's intended, but that's what happens. So yeah, it's because of this.
I bet they made Bahamut. I bet they made Bahamut feel pretty good when he did it. It sounds like it's probably intended.
I was like, I mean, I just like completely blew you out. My bad, but like, thanks for the free win. I'll take it.
And another thing that also happened was when you doubled Fog with like Wand of Weirding or the other treasure.
Yeah,
it used to like work like additively, like because most things work additively, right? If they're you multiply effects, so it would just do like 50% plus 50% and make it go to 0%. But now I think they changed that recently, so it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
No, it is interesting. Have you I've always, in watching you play this game and Battlegrounds and whatnot, Salty, I've considered you a fairly intuitive player and somebody that like thrives on being able to learn the game quickly. Have you been able to pick up any patterns? Like, can you look at an interaction and kind of guess at what it's going to be like now? Or is it still too nuanced and it's just like on a case-by-case situation?
I mean, what you say is true. I think like my biggest strength with these games is just being able to like pick it up really quickly. But I think when it comes to like learning interactions and stuff, you can't really tell, because now, for example, it's mostly based on like the devs like game design philosophy and how they want to like work it out. So like if I knew that the devs like prioritize like the best possible case for players, then like I can probably like guess and predict accurately. But like I said, like when I first casted the end on my Cinderella, I wasn't expecting to get the treasure. I was expecting it just to be eaten. So yeah, I don't think you can really like exactly learn how it works, but you can sort of identify that it can work one of two ways, and then like figuring out which of the two, like you just have to pray.
Well, as we previously talked about in the past, the devs try to intend these types of mechanics to feel good for the player.
So, I think that's good as well. Yeah,
I think that's good too, but there are some nuanced things where like it doesn't work exactly how they want it to, right? Like how earlier we brushed upon the fact that like Echo would die during a meteors before the Lordy interaction and stuff. But once they recognize those types of things, they'll I'm sure they'll fix it so that it feels good to the player.
Yeah, and awful for the opponent.
Absolutely awful. Drastically terrible. Like Fog on Shadow Assassin with Singing Sword. Terrible.
Right. Yeah. I actually wanted to ask Salty, like, as somebody who kind of has approached this game on your own, and you've learned mostly from yourself, what are some things that you notice the way that the game is being played right now in general or in specific that you still think players are maybe not quite grasping things correctly? Or do you have any overarching things that you think the community as a whole is still maybe kind of behind on as far as trying to play this game, like economy wise or minion selection? Like that's a pretty broad question, obviously, but
I mean, the first obvious answer that comes to mind, which isn't so applicable now because people have like learned it now, but definitely when I first started playing, was because I got to Legend after a few days, right? And I quickly realized that Monster Book was just complete like garbage, probably the worst 5 cost character. But then like I came and like started watching streams and interacting with the community and then like everyone just loved Monster Book and would always buy it, and I was just so baffled, and I'm like, what is going on? And then I learned that Monster Book had just been really OP and it had just been nerfed. And then like so that was like the first, like that's like the really obvious answer. In regards to like things that are like actively like still mistakes still being made,
not just from like as like higher level players, but like this podcast is intended to be for everybody. So if there are things just in general you think lower level players are still not quite in general maybe grasping, I'm not sure.
It's kind of hard to answer that. I think with regards to like lower players though, people like when they see these types of games, the way they want to play it is like similar to maybe how you would optimally play games like TFT or the original Auto Chess. Like you want to just, they focus too much on synergy. So they're like, okay, I have good minions, I want to buy more good minions. But just filling your board with good minions, like it's good once you get like Fairy Godmother, but before you have Fairy Godmother, like just because you have lots of good minions doesn't actually mean they have any cohesion or synergy with each other.
Yep.
So I think that's definitely a mistake that newer players make for sure, is that they'll like buy a weak minion because it's good, as opposed to buying like a neutral or evil minion, which just provides way more stats and combat strength.
Yeah, that's something that I noticed with newer players. I've been walking some through, like essentially trying to get them past the lower ranks, which I think I can successfully do for a majority of the time.
Except the few lost causes who will be OB Squire.
I mean, that's essentially me. But I mean, I guess like I'm able to guide people through like a majority of the ranks, probably up into Legend consistently, at least for a top 4 placement. I mean, sometimes you just 8th, but like that's just like the natural progression of the game. Sometimes you just don't hit. The part that I normally get is the synergy part and the knowing when to make your board stronger and what will actually make your board stronger, which is a thing that I also had to teach people in TFT as well, because they saw synergy and it's like, well, this or they had items on something. I was just like, well, you can just put them on this unit because it's like, you essentially tripled it. And they're like, no, I don't want to. It's like gonna stay on this one. And I was like, yeah, but it's like one cost unit and it's like really bad and you don't want to invest any more into it anymore. You're gonna get rid of that. And they're like, yeah, but it's my favorite. And I'm just like, oh God.
Kill your darlings for sure.
Yeah. So I mean that's this kind of like transitions, I guess, more into mindset. It's like just another topic. How do you think about this game when you start your match? Can you give us a walkthrough from like start to finish of essentially your mid-game strategy, like your early game strategy, your mid-game strategy, and your late game, like what you're trying to go for based upon. I mean, I know that is so broad, and there are like
I think I can still break it down a bit though. The first thing you just either like actively tell yourself, or for me, it's like almost ingrained into me now. But like I just expect to win every time I go into a game. I'm expecting to win. There's like I know that like it's an RNG game, so I might not win, but every game I go into, I expect to win it. And then like with regards to sort of going from there, obviously like once you get to like the mid game and like you get bad start, you have to recognize that maybe you can't play for the win anymore, and you have to play for a different like spot. But yeah, I think with regards to like within the game, if you're like starting to tilt as well or whatever, just like really try and like just understand that it's like things that tilt you, like getting bad RNG, like losing, like maybe your slay misses, maybe your shops have been bad, maybe you face high roll opponents. Instead of tilting, it's really important to understand that that's just part of the game, and it's expected that like in variance games like these, like some games will go like that. And you just have to immediately recognize that and be like, okay, so my goal of this game, like winning the game now becomes getting 4th place. That becomes winning, or winning the game becomes getting 5th place. You just have to be able to recognize that, and then instead of tilting, that's like your goal, that's your challenge, is to try and get like 5th place or whatever. And sometimes you'll still do better than that, and you'll be like, oh wow, I actually didn't think I would do better than that. Because when I was playing Hearthstone Battlegrounds, I didn't really like do that. I was still like, I was like, dang, I'm doing so bad. I was just getting tilted. I was like, I guess I can't win anymore. I maybe would go for like a risky high roll play to try and win. But then I started like playing TFT and watching TFT streamers, and like in TFT, it's with the way the damage system works and the game is just longer than Battlegrounds, it becomes much more obvious. Like at a certain point in the game, like you can't play for a first anymore. Like in Battlegrounds, you can still it's like high roll or like scam your way there. But with like TFT, sure you can pivot, but it's not. Like when you're behind, you can tell you're behind, and the game like lasts for long enough that it's So that's like kind of an important skill I picked up from playing TFT, was that it's really important to like recognize the type of game you're playing and just not tilt. And that also leans into like recognizing if you're in a high tempo game or like a game that will last longer, and like using that to try and figure out like how you should play the game, what type of comps you should aim for, and
yeah. I feel like this is a consistent thing, but knowing where you're at in the game will help you evaluate different lines and different unit choices. If you just hit 6 and everybody's been 6 for, I don't know, 4 turns, and you want to go pick up a Herc, that's probably not the greatest idea in the world. Just playing a different, and that's just evaluation based upon your spot in the game. But if you got the 6 first, like 2, I don't know, we'll say 3 XP ahead of everybody else, that Herc is completely okay to pick up. And, that the Jormung, I can never say his right. I'm going to just call him Jerry. Jerry.
I just called him your mum because it's like your mum. So I just say your mum.
I like that.
I like that too. But like Jerry, for example, is also okay to pick up early. Oni King is also okay to pick up early. Like there are like a bunch of things that can essentially make it so you can push your tempo and your lead. And knowing where, like, I'm glad that you said that, because it really does like reinforce what we've been saying this entire time, is being able to read your spot is going to be able to place you higher, make better decisions, make the correct play overall. Thank you for not knowing, but knowing.
I think for me, like something that I've been able to fall back on a lot more recently, especially because, after playing the game a lot, is like understanding like what an average board looks like at every point in the game, right? There's no way there's a way you could probably statistically define it, but it's like, if I'm in a game and I've had an above average board and I'm at 24 health on tier 3, I feel much more comfortable just being like, well, I have nothing I could do here, as opposed to when you don't understand what an average board looks like, it becomes a lot more difficult to be like, oh, well, I must be playing badly, But so I think for newer players that could be especially difficult. It's not only that you're losing, but you don't understand why you're losing. So that can be very tough to overcome.
Yeah, I don't know. When you just get pummeled for 20 and then you decide to put an adventure on your board and you're facing the second guy that is just as powerful as the first guy, probably not your best line of play. You might die. You're probably dead. But like there's a possibility, obviously, because of the way that the fights go. I mean, that also could not be the situation. However,
Sure.
It's just like decision making is really important. And I like what you were saying about TFTs, but knowing your spot in the game. And that is 100% true. Like, could 100% speak to that, because, there were games in TFT where I knew I was playing for 4th. There are games that I knew that I was playing for 6th. And there were games that I knew that I was playing for 8th. And sometimes you can't really avoid those situations, but it's just knowing where you're at so you don't get that last place. Not getting last is pretty impressive. If you can avoid taking an 8th and get a 7th every time, I would take that over getting an 8th. I still wouldn't like a 7th, maybe a 5th or a 6th or a 4th, depending. But you just gotta understand.
Yeah, I started my day off today with a fat 8th. That did not feel good.
So I went to go play my win of the day, and I literally took the biggest L of my life.
Yeah, that's feel bad.
Oh, it's.
Are you guys both qualify? Speaking of getting 8th, so you guys still have enough points to qualify for the tournament?
I have to play a couple more games to secure my spot. I decided that I was going to play 2 games, win 1. Then I was like, okay, I'll play like another game just to push myself up past the 100 rank. And then I got 8th twice in a row. And I was like, well,
a lot of people are losing right now because I keep gaining rank while sitting. So
that's 5 head. That's actually so 5 head.
You actually have the biggest brain of all time, Clay.
Well, to be honest, I played a lot yesterday. I gained because I dropped so much. And then yesterday I decided to grind a bunch of games off stream, so I gained 400 or 500. So I'm just sitting right now.
That's not bad at all.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm also sitting quite safely at rank 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody might knock you out.
Oh, it's
yeah.
pretty funny.
I don't know. Must be nice. I can't relate.
I was just going to ask Salty about I know for yourself over the course of your video game career, and especially with streaming, you've had some of your own sort of specific mental health struggles and that type of stuff. Are you finding with you doing maybe a bit better from mental health perspective right now? Is that helping you do better at the game? How has that progression been for you?
Yeah, I think there's a relation between both. I think partly mental health better equals playing better, but I think also playing and performing worse also took a really big toll on my mental health as well. Yeah. So when because I was rank 1 in Battlegrounds, and when you're rank 1 in a game, it really definitely helps out your mental. And I lost.
Exactly what that's like. It's hard to talk
with a game like Battlegrounds that is so much bigger than Storybook Brawl. I'm sure that was a massive confidence boost.
Yeah, it's even more prestigious, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then, I think even my mental health, I was struggling with depression, and I was finding it pretty hard to get out of bed. The only reason I was getting out of bed really was my competitive side was must stay rank 1. Right. That was what was driving me, right? So. But then the problem becomes, right, is sure, it's good that you have something the game is driving you to get out of bed or whatever. But the problem is if that your only drive is the game, then once you start doing badly in the game, which isn't necessarily because you're playing bad, it could just be you have a bad day of variance, right? You low roll a bunch, or maybe someone else just overtakes you because someone else is just super, super insane at the game. Or tournaments especially, right? Because ladder it's over time, but tournaments are one-off events. So you do badly in a tournament, that's gonna stick with you for a while, right? So the problem is when you're like so driven by like one single external factor to like try and overcome like whatever like mental health you're dealing with, if something like happens to that external factor that goes bad, then it like really like tanks on your mental health. Because like if you have like a more internal like motivation to like do something, then like external factors are gonna like hurt that a bit maybe, but they're not really gonna change that. Whereas if like you're relying on these external factors, like so I've kind of had to sort of like learn that the hard way over the past like couple of years and like work through that and figure it out. So
and just for context, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing your like full age or like your age bracket or anything, but I think you're
I'm
a bit
21.
younger. Yeah, I think like you come off as a lot more mature than a lot of 21-year-olds I know. So I think just for context, that's kind of some of the stuff that Salty's been figuring out over the past couple of years as he tries to stream. And personally, as somebody who's had some of my own mental health struggles, I appreciate how open you've been about it all. And it's given me some courage in maybe not necessarily discussing mine openly, but at least feeling like, there are other people out there that are dealing with some of the same stuff, even as like a rank 1 Battlegrounds player or Storybook brawler.
For sure.
So that's been really cool.
I also want to back up your statement with, I'm 30. I have noticed from my experience when people are young like that and are obviously a lot more mature for their age, they've gone through a lot. They've experienced a lot more than people that are around that age bracket. They've gone through more shit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on your eggs in one basket kind of explanation.
Mm-hmm.
I had the same thing. So I was grinding really hard to get on a team. I can't talk about what team it was for reasons, for Valorant in particular. And I really pushed like my job during that time. It was going like mediocrely. Everything that I was doing was just kind of like on the fence. Like the only thing that I had to do is wake up, like go to work, and then come home and grind. And when I would lose and lose and lose and lose, and I would tilt off the face of the earth because it was the only thing I had that was currently going for me at that time. It's not something that I looked forward to. And for those that are listening, if you want to achieve something, like if you want to be able to reach the competitive greatness, you also have to understand that there is time to walk away from something. And that's like super important overall, to be able to put it down and not like keep yourself just occupied with your losses, because you remember a lot more losses than you do wins for the most part. And mentally, the more you lose within a day, the harder it's going to be for you to recognize like all the great plays you actually did make. Then imposter syndrome sets in, and then you're down 700 rating.
Yeah.
And, it's not where you want to be. And then you have to invest so many hours to climb back up. So take a step, walk back, take a day or two, whatever you need to do. Even a Smurf account, right? Like that's what a lot of people do for mental resets. Play on a Smurf, where the competition's a little less and the stakes are a little bit lower for folks. If you're for example, if you're trying to work towards the top 300 grind, like a Smurf is perfectly fine to park if you get queue anxiety. Like also great alternative. Do you have anything to share on that, Salty?
So I think the first thing to say is that, like definitely in games like this, which are dictated as much by variance as they are by your own decision making, there comes a point where I think almost everyone will like doubt their ability and doubt their play. So if this was like especially like prevalent for me when I was playing Battlegrounds, like nothing changed. I was still like one of the best players, but I just like, because I was just like playing less maybe and like just like a bit burnt out or whatever, I sort of had a string of like bad games, and doesn't mean I got any worse as a player. Like maybe there is like some things I can do slightly better. Maybe I can like focus. Like it's always good to be self-critical if you care about improving. But like fundamentally, I didn't like really get worse as a player or anything. But then, yeah, like you say, what happens? You start to doubt yourself. And like that doubt can just really break everything down, because once you start doubting yourself, you start changing your play style. I can actually do another story for this. So for example, in one of my tournaments, my like at playoffs Hearthstone 2018 or 2019, I don't remember, but I had done like well in some tournaments before this, but this was like the really big important tournament because it qualified you like for worlds or whatever, right? And sitting next to me on my right, I think was Hunter Ace, and then sitting to me on my left was like another like really top like player. So for those of you who don't know, Hunter Ace is like well known as like the best Hearthstone player in the world. Like he won the championship, and like super insane player. But because like he was watching me, because like you sometimes like would glance and like look at other people, or like if you finish your game earlier, you'll watch like whoever's sitting next to you, like just silently. Like when they start watching you, you just start doubting yourself, and then like you start changing. You start like your brain kind of tricks yourself or convinces you that, oh, maybe I should like do this play or this play. You kind of like no longer like stick with your gut and stick what you normally do, and you start like tricking yourself into doing like an alternative play that is like worse than what you should do and what you would normally do. So I would say, like, if you co-op, if you like whatever the case, just like believe in yourself and be confident in your own ability, I think is really important. And you actually might be wrong. Like it might have been correct to do the other play, but I think as long as like you're confident in yourself, that will lead to consistency, and you will gradually improve over time as long as you're self-critical. The moment you start doubting yourself and doubting your plays, I would say just like honestly, it's just, at least for me, what's worked is I just dismiss it and I'm just like, no, I'm the best. And then like, sure, like maybe I'm not always right, but I think it's more important, especially if you want to be like a consistent player. Like you don't have time in tournaments to be questioning yourself, right? That can come later. So yeah, that's what I will say on that. Oh, and then with regards to like ladder anxiety, I would say same thing. Like just be confident in yourself. Either you're gonna lose ranks because like it's just variance, but then you'll just climb back up and it's like whatever. Or you'll lose ranks and you won't climb back up. And that means that the rank you were at was just you high rolling to get to that rank. And if you want to improve and become a better player long term, which I think should be everyone's aim, it shouldn't just be to be sitting at a high rank and looking pretty, then it's better you just like play more, and then you'll get back to that rank pretty quickly. It'll take maybe a few weeks for you to improve and like get good enough to be consistently at that rank, but then you'll get back there and that will be your new baseline, and then you'll reach you'll like high roll one day to a new peak, and then like it will come back. And that happened to me too when I was playing constructed Hearthstone, but you just kind of have to push past it. And once you sort of push past it, like it just like, I haven't had ladder anxiety in any game I've played for such a long time now. I used to though, but you just have to push past it. And yeah.
Yeah, my old coach in TFT used to tell me, you can fluctuate between 100 and 400 MMR. The same applies in this game. Your fluctuation.
I think it's even bigger in this game.
It's probably even bigger in this game because of how hard it is to you get hit when you take an eighth, and how little you gain when you get a first or a second, comparatively, depending on how high up on the ladder you are.
One caveat I was just going to add, or one thing that I've done, is like, if you're playing at your peak performance, or if you're playing at your true skill level, I think everything that Salty's saying applies, right? Mm-hmm. But if you notice yourself like going on like heavy tilt, or if you're playing at like hours of the day when your mind is not, maybe operating quite correctly, like those are times for me personally that I can lose a lot of rank, that it's going to take me a long time to get back. So I've personally made a decision that I don't tend to play on my main account after, say, 10 p.m. Now, that may not be feasible for everybody, and that may not be the best strategy for everybody, but I was noticing this pattern where I would play after 10, and sometimes I would gain rank and it would be great. But a lot of the time, as soon as I would lose one game, I would start to tilt. I'd be unable to get off a tilt. Before I know, it's like 3 a.m. I'm down 500 rank points, and it's like, and I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, not only is this bad for my rank, this is ruining my mental health. Like, this is absolutely destroying me. So that's something I've done, as a pattern recognition thing.
Yeah, that's definitely something. Rage queuing is the biggest detriment to your MMR. I promise. Yeah. Like, how often do you rage queue, Salty, if at all?
Yeah, I'd be curious how to reconcile those two kind of ideas, because I know there is a way to reconcile them. But yeah,
I mean, when I'm streaming, I kind of like either I have to end stream or just queue. So like it's like it hasn't really happened yet with Storybook Pool. I haven't had like a really big lose streak. Yeah, but in Battlegrounds certainly like you get destroyed by a Maiev and then you like lose yeah. And Battlegrounds like the way the damage system works, like oh my goodness, like it can feel so terrible and so tilting. And certainly like if I'm not streaming, I will just like stop playing. I'll just turn off my computer and like like that off some steam. But yeah, when you're streaming, like you do just queue up again and you're just mad and. But I think when you do that, you just have to know like it's okay to do that, but expect to lose MMR. Yeah, like whenever I do that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna lose MMR, but I just don't care.
Yeah,
right.
So yeah.
I will say though, after Salty, he actually gave this advice a few days ago on stream about like when you're feeling a ladder anxiety, just hit the Q button. And it actually has really been helping me because there are situations where it's not that I'm tilt queuing. It's that like I don't want to keep playing because I've like gained some rank and I want to keep that rank. And it's and that idea of like when I'm feeling that anxiety, just like press the Q button. Like I've actually found it very helpful. So
yeah, that's the best time. I think the best time to hit the Q button is when you're feeling that anxiety. Don't wait for it to fade and then Q. Q when you're feeling the anxiety because then you'll actually just move past it and you'll move past it quicker than you realize, I think. Whereas if you wait for the anxiety to subside and then you press Q button, you're not actually like getting past the anxiety. It will come back and it will stop you from like queuing. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a really, really, really solid piece of advice. I didn't even think of it like that. I mean, I've played in front of a couple thousands of people. Like I literally could care less about like, who I'm going to be queuing into at this point. So I don't really get ladder queue anxiety as much as I used to because like ladder and MMR is just a number for the most part.
Yeah,
it like you're as good as you can get there, and like some like until you get good enough, you won't be able to make that the single digits or at least the double digits to get down there. If you keep at it, keep your head on straight, play the best of your ability, criticize yourself as reasonably as possible. Being able to recognize like when you've had a string of bad games and you've just low rolled versus like you're doing something wrong and you're blaming it on low rolling. That's a very different situation. But I'll just say this under the pretense that like everybody is not blaming the game for the mistakes that they have made.
Yeah.
Anyway, wanted to go ahead and say that once again, Salty, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Absolute pleasure having you here.
Yeah.
No, it's my pleasure. I had a lot of fun. So thanks for having me.
I just wanted to go ahead and open the floor to you if you have any questions for us, or if you if you have any shout outs, if you want to talk about anything in particular with your stream. I know you've been doing coaching streams and stuff like that, which has been actually super insightful for me, watching the VODs and things like that, being able to kind of look and see like what lines and what decisions that you would make, especially with your viewers. So I'm just opening the floor to you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing I would want to like shout out is the YouTube channel that I literally just started a couple of days ago. There's like nothing on there right now except one Peter Pants game, but there will be more videos coming to the YouTube channel that I just started. And then like check out my stream. I do like occasionally do like I'll just coach viewers for free, like just do a giveaway for it. And then I also offered like paid VOD review coaching as well. So yeah, I mean, just if like you're just interested in anything, just like message me. Happy to talk. I'm happy to give like advice in general to people as well and answer questions on stream or like in Discord or whatever. So yeah, don't feel afraid to reach out, whatever it's for. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think I really have any questions.
One thing I want to encourage, not to take your thunder, Salty, but if anybody out there is listening or watching this and they're suffering for some of this like mental health, ladder anxiety, that kind of stuff, like please feel free to like message in our Discord, or if you'd rather reach out to me personally, I'm somebody who's actually always willing to talk about that kind of stuff. And if anybody else is struggling with this kind of stuff, it can be really, really helpful to actually talk to somebody face to face. So yeah, if anybody needs to reach out, I would really encourage you to go ahead and do that. Above and beyond any game related stuff, just, mental health is important. And I think it's really key that when you need help with that kind of stuff, that you do have somebody to talk to. So
Absolutely. And my DMs are open as well. You can go ahead and message me in the Into the Story Discord, or you can go ahead and reach out via Twitter, or I'm also on the Storybook Brawl Discord as well. And you just at me in a message or whatever, and be more than happy to talk. Well, if anybody doesn't have anything else, I'm going to go ahead and say one more time, thank you very much, SirSalty, for joining us. I hope you had a great time and you got yourself ready for the next upcoming tournament. I hope you sweep that too. Or you'll see you, me, Kleck, Keith, Quinn,
We're
etc.
always around.
One of the four of us has to win it. It doesn't have to be me, but one of the four of us is going to win it. All right, sounds good.
All I want to not click out of contention with Gilded Harp. That's my only goal.
I want to outwoggle Kleck. That's what I want to do. That's the only way I want to win a game is by outwoggling.
You want to what? Outwoggle me?
Yeah, I want to outwoggle you. That's all I want to do.
The Woggler.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, and once again, somebody else want to say it? Don't buy the egg.
Hit the bell notification. Oh, don't buy the egg. Oh, okay.
Smash that egg and subscribe.
All right, later.